uh, and then we can proceed further.
Thank you very much, Konkanaji, for your introduction. Do you have someone to give the inaugural address today as per the this one poster?
I can understand, but Parthiban sir, I've been trying to reach him, but somehow I'm not been able to. I think he hasn't joined. So, Parthiban sir, are you there? Regional Director, ICCR India. Uh, is there anybody on behalf of him? If not, sir, we can proceed, and I'm sure he would be joining us later.
Sure. Thank you very much. It's wonderful, that 5th June today is the World Environment Day, and across the world, there has been so much of enthusiasm while people are celebrating the World Environment Day in their own ways, and it is a very rare occasion that you get to see that from rural to urban, from institutes to panchayats, everywhere there is a hype about celebrating the World Environment Day. So we understand that in the past decade, how much of change has taken place, because there was a time uh, everyone present here would know that hardly anyone knew that 5th June is supposed to be our World Environment Day. But today, each and everyone from school children, school going children to professionals, everyone is aware. We have seen big corporate companies, they bring together, even on a Sunday like today, they have brought together all their workers on a Saturday or on a Friday, and made sure that they had an advanced celebration of the World Environment Day, which was wonderful to see. And going and taking the agenda ahead. ISCS has always been a leader in taking up certain issues, and not only bringing it forward through such kind of webinars, but making sure that there is a takeaway from here with the people who are listening, and also takeaway for ISCS to take it forward with the different concerned organizations. That if there are any suggestions, if there are any advices which can be taken up with the concerned department, and which has been happening for quite some time, for quite some years now. So and we know that post pandemic, the 2.5 years that we have spent at home, ISCS has also organized a lot of online webinars of the similar pattern, and I think the pattern stays on. However, I would request that we should find out more opportunities for physical get together at the field, where we can actually see, our speakers who are here, celebrity speaker. We have Dr. Anwaruddin Chaudhary, with whom I have had an opportunity to work on the field for quite some years. When he was the DC over there in Buxa, and we had an opportunity to work on the re-establishment of the conservation culture of the Boros through Manas Mausagendri Ecotourism Society in Manas Tiger Reserve. So that was a wonderful opportunity when I got to know him very closely, though I knew you from before. But still, very cool photographs, and will also see his action also. He has several publications on wildlife and environment to his credit. Thank you, Anurindra, for joining us at this meeting, at this webinar. And we have our young Shri Sanangshu Modak, who is a junior fellow at Observer Research Foundation. Sanangshu, we get to know you over here. Thank you, and we would love to listen about the young minds, how they are taking over on the environmental issues, and matching it with the so-called development of connectivity. So let's discuss more about it in the upcoming time. And we have another celebrity from the region of East Himalaya, Dr. Sonam Lama. He is from the Geography Department of Darjeeling Government College. He's been actively working on the different researches and actively working with his students, at the grassroots level in the East Himalayan landscape. We hope to get much inputs on the status of connectivity and the impact of connectivity on the environment and the ecology that we have, Dr. Sonam Lama. We are really eager to hear from you, because we know that you have been actively working at the very grassroots level with the help of your students, and your institution has been one of the institutions that has been the flag bearer for any kind of implementable research and its impact in the entire Darjeeling Hills in the north of West Bengal. Thank you for joining us. Just before we go into the details, I would just like to briefly tell all our audience who are here, that connectivity, what we mean by that, and how does it impact our lives. If you look at the human civilization, connectivity has been the major concern for all of us, because without connectivity, what we see in the modern world wouldn't have happened. We would have lived in pockets in our own way, and we would have never been able to connect each other. It is connectivity for different reasons that has happened in the entire ecological system. We know that even connectivity between animals take place when they move from one habitat to the other for several reasons, for their food, for their for the other biological reasons. They move from one place to the other. But connectivity in human beings, where where we say that the mind is the forerunner, there when we talk about connectivity, it is of a complete different line setup that we see, because we create our own connectivity. Several years ago, hundreds and thousands of years ago, when connectivity first started, the major impact that the benefit that human civilization got was trade. And this entire trade took place through the different maritime routes and the river routes that were there, the waterways that were there. So it took place through there, and that is when the river ports and the sea ports and the different ports it developed. Around the ports, we could see that several communities, they came down and they developed, and they settled down in these ports, around these ports, and that is how human settlement occurred, and how civilization began in this world. So that was one part of it. Later, with the coming of industrialization or the industrial movement, we know that railways played a major role in the development of human beings, in the modern development of human beings, helping them to uh, transporting freight, transporting goods from one place to the other for people, and then later passengers. So this became a major network on land. From water, we shifted to land, and the railways were set up in a major way, and the railways major impact. Around the railway stations, we know that the human civilizations, they slowly gathered around the railway station, and we then started having human settlements around the railway stations. We still exist. If you go around across our country, from east to west and from south to north, you will see that there are several settlements, human settlements and urbanization around the railway stations. Next, the one of the oldest but one of the fastest growing, one of the latest development has been on the road connectivity. Just imagine about road connectivity that has happened in the past few years. It has connected millions of people thousands and lakhs of kilometers of roads have been set up by different countries. There has been connectivity between the different countries. So this has been a major impact. And with the coming of the modernization of the road connectivity, human civilization started coming around the urban areas, around the roads. Now most of the people who live in far and remote villages have a tendency to come and create a human settlement close to the road, slowly growing it as a first as a small town and then into a city. So this has been a long evolution that has taken place, through different air connectivity. Certainly has been there, and it has been more of a elite connectivity. So the so-called impact amongst the masses has not been that heavy as otherwise. When we talk about other than emergency, freight activity by air during war, or during even during trade that has taken place, and also during passenger, mainly in tourism, air connectivity has kept an impact. But majorly, now if we see railways and roadways, because it is land based, has been more uh, impactable in the lives of human beings. So taking off from here, when we see this kind of connectivity that has taken place across our even our country, has been a major a major content. When we talk about connectivity, waterways itself in India, we have almost 14,500 navigable length along our rivers and our coastal areas, which is not a matter of joke. Which is a and the waterways, because it is one of the oldest connectivity methodologies. So the carbon footprint is low, and also the charges, the tariff per kilometer of traveling is also low. So it is supposed to be one of the most friendliest ways of connectivity, waterways. We have moved quite away from the waterways, and we know that with the colonial influence on India, we have developed a big network of railways, which today stands to almost 1,26,366 kilometers of railway network that we have in India, which is huge. And the third that we have is the roadways, which is the highest actually, where we have 62 lakhs 15,797 kilometers of road network that we have in our country. And we know, as our honorable minister for transport and railways have announced, that on an average we could look forward to development of 50 kilometers per day of road being developed in our country. And uh, it is good to an extent for human beings. It is good that we are getting connected. It is good that we are getting closer to each other. It is good that urbanization is improving, but at the cost of what? This is a question, for today, because this is a major question that all the three experts that we have in our panel today would be taking forward this entire thing, that how do we account upon the carbon footprint that is happening? How do we account upon the fragmentation of habitat that is happening? How do we account upon the loss of habitat that is happening? Because these are the things that we need to not only to ponder upon, but to act upon before we think that connectivity is a real developmental agenda for us. And if it is a real developmental agenda for us, then at the cost of what are we achieving this kind of connectivity, and what should be a way forward to actually to balance between our development and the environment that we survive on, the ecology that we survive on. How do we balance it, would be a question to our panelists over here today. So to begin with, I would request Dr. Anwaruddin Chaudhary, who is extremely who has been in the shoes of a bureaucrat, who has been an activist with nature, who has been, one of the wisest people on ecology from our eastern northeastern region. So I would push the ball towards him, and I would request him to play with it and actually present in how do we go ahead for our generations to come when it comes to development and its balance with ecology and environment. Please, Anuradinda.
Thank you, Raj. You have explained very nicely how we developed our connectivity. In fact, connectivity between humans has been revolutionized. But in the process, what we have done, we have fragmented the connectivity of other life forms, which also you have touched. And the way we have done it, it is reaching an extreme level. You can, once you see the human elephant conflict, forget about other species. Many even do not know the smaller ones, the impact on those. The most visible human elephant conflict, if we see, and if we see its impact and its that increasing trend itself is a dangerous situation coming ahead. So I prepared a small presentation on the subject, and I'd like to present it now. Please. Yeah. So I have kept the title as it was suggested for today's meet: Impact of Connectivity on Environment and Ecology. Next, please. Next slide. Connectivity is popularly understood is the connecting link between fragmented habitats or ecosystems that allows a smooth movement of life forms to and from. Connectivity can also be described as the capacity of a life form to move across fragmented habitat patches or areas. Connectivity could be through a continuous habitat, but nowadays the most discussed one is the connectivity through corridors or linkages. Firstly, you see, connectivity allows proper functioning of an ecosystem. If there is no connectivity, slowly the ecosystem will collapse. Next, please. The connectivity, again, interestingly, could be of different shapes and sizes, including the artificial ones such as overpasses and underpasses. The photograph shows an underpass as well as overpass at the edge of Manas National Park, which Raj was just now referring. Underpass is followed by various species, the elephants, tigers, and sometimes overpass is also by several other life forms which used to avoid the riverbed. Next, please. Considering the seriousness of the issue of fragmentation, there are research activities and actual implementation in the field on connectivity. It is not that nothing is being done. Something is being done and it is a continuous process. According to Bennett, Rudnick et al. And Hilty et al., connectivity can be ecological, functional, or structural. While ecological connectivity is well known, because whenever we speak, it is basically ecological connectivity. The functional connectivity is the degree to which the landscape facilitates or impedes movement among resource patches, such as gene flow, movement, or species distribution. Connectivity itself is not enough unless there is a congenial situation where a significant number of species can move in significant numbers. Once ecological connectivity is secured, others can be monitored and maintained. Once we have the ecological connection, if others are there are some issues regarding other connectivities that can be improved upon. Like if the connectivity is there, but there is no forest cover, it can be planted. If connectivity is there, but there are some other barriers on way and route, those can be removed or modified. Next, please. Now, why we need connectivity? The issue of connectivity has become important as there is growing fragmentation of habitat. It is growing, and owing to, number one is human induced. Please, it has gone. Yeah. Developmental activities, as you all know, then agriculture, open cast mining, power generation, and deforestation. And of course, there is a natural one also, is the climate change. You can see the two photographs. In one, the land has been cleared in Dhemaji district of Assam, eastern Assam. Now you see the way it has been cleared, that it has already become a huge barrier for a lot of species. And you see this is a narrow barrier in the form of railway, which has also prevented movement of slow lories, hulo gibbon, and many other species. Next, please. We need dams, but mega dams should be avoided, and proper EIS should be prepared. Because once a good EIA is prepared, the dam authorities, they can rectify these, at least some of these. But if the EIA is not properly made, nobody knows in what way it has to be intervened. And the palm oil plantation is coming up. You must be aware that in Malaysia and Indonesia, all the ecological issues are relating to palm oil plantation. Definitely, we need some palm oil plantation, but if it is at the cost of natural forest, then of course it will have to be seriously given thought of. Next. You see the open cast mining in eastern Assam and Arunachal. These are also creating wide gaps in ecological gaps, preventing many species from crossing over. During the last 150 years, a lot of barriers have been created by tea plantations. Of course, elephants are still moving, but these are insecure movement routes, not secured. Next, please. Now, you see on a map of India, you can make out the forest cover. It is highly fragmented. And Northeast, which is a sizable forest cover, is only 8% of India in a small corner. Next. Next, please. No, I think there was another slide. No. Go back. Back. One slide back. Yeah. No, yeah. While all life forms are affected in various ways, the large and medium-sized mammals are worst affected and are also illustrative and more visible. To show examples, I think these are for example, elephant. We can show people that this is the impact, because they want to understand the impact on insects. We cannot show them, less visible. Species such as elephant need large habitat, and in present scenario, where such large intact habitat is being lost or already fragmented, the answer lies in corridors. Even in Northeast India, there are nearly 16 fragmented populations or subpopulations linked by insecure corridors through tea plantations, which I have already told, and paddy fields. And often these are across national highways and railways. Next, please. Hulo gibbon, India's only ape, is an arboreal animal, and hence even smaller clearings, like clearing by railway in forest, could be barriers in their movement. Next, please. Almost all the arboreal species, such as slow lories, the golden langur, which is already fragmented in 21 populations, binturong, flying and non-flying squirrels, are all vulnerable to small forest gaps. While large forest gaps could be vulnerable for all species, everything. But some smaller ones, which may not have any impact on elephants, rhino and all, but could have impacted these species. Next, please. Larger forest gaps have already impacted many more, including tiger, clouded leopard, bears, several species of primates, ungulates. In fact, all are impacted by larger forest gaps. Next. It is not just forest dwelling species. The grassland dwelling species are also impacted, because we have also destroyed grasslands, and there are gaps between grasslands. In fact, all the grasslands found in Northeast India, including North Bengal, are in fragments. From rhino to pygmy hog, critically endangered pygmy hog, florican and black-breasted parrotbill, all are impacted by the fragmentation of grassland. where of course connectivity would be a very difficult task, or somewhere in many cases it would be impossible, because it is impossible to connect Jaldapada with Manas through a grassland corridor, while a tree forest corridor could be possible, but grassland corridors are virtually impossible. Next, please. Similarly, the bulk of world population of wild water buffalo is found in Northeast India, and which has been seriously impacted by grassland fragmentation. All are fragmented habitats. Manas, Kaziranga, Dibru-Soikwa, these are all fragments by several hundred kilometers. Next. Now you see in what way it impacts poaching. Because poaching can take place anywhere. But once the fragmented areas become small, the poaching becomes easy, relatively easy, and one can poach like anything. But then the area is very small. There is no connectivity, and a small area hunting or poaching is going to be a smooth one. These are some examples. Next point. Next, please. Now you see climate change. Those I have shown, those are directly human induced. Climate change, although it is natural, but again you see, it is natural phenomenon of long-term shifts in climate. There is temperature and weather patterns, and it has taken place on several times, maybe. But at present, what has happened? Due to human activities, it has become much faster. Again, you see here human activities have come into the picture. Causes, you see, major causes rapid industrialization has enhanced burning of fossil fuels. Next is rapid deforestation. Then you see waste, including one-time use of materials. Even in childhood, wherever we went, we were provided tea or water in glass. But now wherever you go, these are one-time use materials are given, and we are throwing it away. Then power projects, which I have already spoken, and dams. Then vehicles, which are emitting gas, carbon monoxide gas. Even livestock farming, use of fertilizers containing nitrogen, oil drilling, etc. in various ways are contributing towards climate change. Result is, you see, rising temperature and rising sea levels. And ultimately what will happen? The ecosystem collapse will be there. Disasters are always there. But now, wherever disaster is taking place, for example, recent pre-monsoon flood. In monsoon flood, we can see some disaster in Assam. But this year, it was pre-monsoon flood. The way roads have been damaged, once you see, you will feel like that there is an earthquake, no flood. Next, please. Now you see one with global warming and receding glaciers, high elevation mammals such as snow leopard. These are examples. Because after some years, you can see the mountain Eastern Himalaya, part of Eastern Himalaya. The two peaks may remain snow covered, but the intervening low-lying areas will be devoid of snow. So species which are dependent upon high elevation areas, subalpine areas, they will have decreasing habitat. They will have habitat shrinkage in their areas. Next, please. Now coming to Northeast India, because there are two hotspots. Just to give an example, it is only 8% of India's geographical area, with 65% of mammals, 70% of birds, and more than 33% reptiles. And to maintain that, we need connectivity. Connectivity must be maintained to secure this diversity. It is not going to remain like this always. Next, please. These are some of the diverse habitats. But again, connectivity will have to be maintained if the habitats are to remain like this. Next, please. You see the significance of habitat connectivity. These two dead animals, one is Bengal slow loris, the other one is a civet. Ultimately, such things have already started happening. These things have happened in smaller gaps. Because of gaps formed by national highway, they tried to cross over and were crushed by vehicles. These are just examples, tip of the iceberg. Next, please. Now, you see, as I have already referred that human-elephant conflict owing mainly to lack of or weak connectivity, either no connectivity or weak connectivity. And what has happened, you see, more than 2,000 people were killed by elephants in Northeast India between 1990 and 2020. Highest in a single year in a state was 80 in 2006 in Assam. And almost during the same period, 600 elephants were known to be poached. There could be unknown poaching also. This is all because of lack of connectivity. Next, please. This is the last slide. The road ahead. We'll have to protect the remaining habitats. It is not that habitats, we allow habitats to go under fragmentation and then try to link them through connectivity. It is not. Wherever habitat is there, we'll have to protect them. Then educate protection of existing protected areas. Because ultimately, whatever we may say, the protected areas are relatively well secured. And the habitat would ultimately will remain in those areas as islands. So educate protection should be given to those areas. And wherever possible, extension of PS, protected areas. It is not just linkage to corridors. Wherever habitat is there, that should be brought under a protected area network. Then we need legal protection of elephant corridors. They are moving through paddy fields, they are moving through tea gardens, no problem. But problem is that unless there is some sort of legal thing, let the ownership remain with tea companies or villagers. But unless something is there, some sort of legal protection is there, they might change the land use pattern. Somebody might construct a house on the corridor itself, on the path itself. Then what will happen? There will be more conflict. The ultimate losers will be either tea garden people or the villagers who are cultivating paddy fields. The eviction of recent encroachers, wherever encroachers are there on the corridors and all, they will have to be done for the sake of greater interest. Then a strengthening of anti-poaching measures. We need that because I have already shown because of lack of connectivity, lack of or presence of weak corridors and all, poaching has become easier. So this has to be strengthened. Then review and regulate some development projects such as big dams, palm oil plantation, power lines, roads. We need all this, but some sort of review is necessary and should be regulated. Like medium-sized dams could be perhaps a good option. Palm oil plantation should not be allowed inside reserve forest. Maybe in some private land or some unclassed forest areas. Then power lines should not be through good forest areas. The roads, railways that could be laid down in a way that impact should be minimum. Then we also need more field-oriented research. Ultimately, the recommendations backed by sound research would always help. And of course, last but not the least is the awareness campaign, which it should be a continuous process. Because we had very good awareness campaign in 90s in Assam and other parts of Northeast. But now when I visited those areas, I found that next generation people, we could not carry out awareness, or other organizations also, they could not carry out. And many of the younger generation are not fully aware as their parents or uncles were in the past. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anuragindra. I would really thank Dr. Anuragindra also because, as you rightly pointed out, connectivity development for human beings, which actually damages the connectivity linkages, ecological connectivity linkages for other species who survive along with human beings. Exactly. And you have talked about a few things about the road ahead. I would actually request you, like in our rural areas, most of our rural areas, which are supposed to be ecologically sound, because any rural area or a village means, where we have good access to pure air, pure water, and pure soil, and that comes from the backyard biodiversity. So, because of connectivity, which is for human development, as you said, more about the structural or developmental connectivity, which has caused a lot of loss for the ecological connectivity. Now, we already have several road projects, rail projects, which are ongoing, and more are to come in,
Yeah.
including, as you said, the dams and the other things. Where do we bring, as you said, where do we bring about awareness amongst our policy makers, and how do we bring more concern among our young generation, that you said, we have lost a lot of connect in regard to awareing our young generation, that how do we bring about more awareness about amongst this younger generation who are there, so that they understand that ecological connectivity is more important than the developmental or structural connectivity. So if you please may throw some light on it, because when we have a lot of viewers over here who are actually waiting to listen from you, to hear from you. So in these two phases, that how do we make our policymakers more aware, or the younger generation into the talking to them about the ecological connectivity awareness. Please, sir.
Actually, what is happened? Day before yesterday, I came from Mussoorie. There, Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy of National Academy of Administration is there. They invited me. They had a brainstorming session. They now want a module, training module, which they will develop. We will provide them some input. They want that, the bureaucrats, the civil servants who are being given training there, they should intervene in at least in certain issues on environmental and ecological aspects are there. So it is not that people are not giving it a thought. People are giving it a thought. And secondly, they are also going to have a particularly hill slope, 150-meter long slope, where they want to put a diorama of the entire Himalayan ecosystem, representative one, so that the bureaucrats, not only IAS and IPS, all bureaucrats, in fact, all civil servants, including revenue service and revenue service and other services, central services, they go for initial training in that institute. So all will have to be motivated through a module, training module. This is a good idea, and this is going to happen for the first time. Secondly, you see, there are other areas also. Today, in fact, I had a lot of meetings. It's a growing interest being shown by schools and colleges, not just a formality, but now they are doing it with some sincerity. But your main target, you see, as you have suggested, the villagers. We are doing it all mostly in urban areas, targeting urban schools and colleges. As we did in 1990s in Assam, I think similar exercise need to be carried out, covering the village areas. And I would urge upon the NGOs and various social organization groups that it should not be done as a stopgap arrangement, like once in a blue moon. It's not like that. It should be a continuous process, so that generation after generation, that people can get motivated and they can get the awareness.
Okay, sir, can we move on to the next speaker?
Yes, thank you,
Actually,
thank
we are
you,
running
thank you,
against
thank you very
time.
much, Dr.
Sorry for
Chaudhary.
budding in.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Chaudhary. And now moving on to Sayanakshu Modakji, that we would request your input on this subject, more on the basis of dissecting the present condition, where we talk about development through connectivity. And as our previous speaker, Dr. Chaudhary, pointed out, that connectivity balance between the ecological connectivity and the structural connectivity to be brought out. If you please may ponder upon these points and highlight them, please. Mr. Modak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Basu. I hope I'm audible.
Yes. Audible.
Perfect.
And really grateful to ISCS India for offering me this opportunity. So when I first received this topic about impact of connectivity on environment and ecology, the first thought that occurred to me was, whose connectivity are we talking about? So essentially, and that also leads me to the question that you gave me to think about, that how can we sort of create a development model that that considers nature as an asset rather than a liability, as it stands right now. So that is one thing that really sort of made me think about this topic. So when we talk of the impact of connectivity on environment and ecology, we are essentially looking at a governance paradigm that is anthropocentric and that considers human interests at its core. Now, when this connectivity aspect is being deliberated, we often find that this comes at the detriment of nature, at the detriment of natural spaces, and this is perhaps best exemplified by linear infrastructure that we see all over the place. So whenever we have a road, whenever we have a railway line, whenever we have a canal, or even a power line, that essentially bifurcates, very sort of coherent ecosystems into two parts, so as to speak. Now, if you look at how nature operates, there is never an abrupt change, as far as nature and natural processes are concerned. So even between two seemingly very different ecosystems, there is always a zone of transition. We call it ecotones. But when you have a linear infrastructure in place, it's almost like a barrier, and that is often that comes at the detriment of the wildlife, as well as the different ecosystem processes which are very important. So now animals always need to migrate. Animals have been migrating, and they migrate for a variety of reasons. So this include food. This might include escaping from a predator. This may also include finding new sort of areas to sort of colonize. Also, in the present times, we see that climate change is also inducing a lot of migration, because this is more pronounced in the alpine regions, in the Himalayan regions. So as the climate is changing, and as the temperatures are rising, so we see that a lot of animals are also shifting, a lot of plants are also shifting. So there's a lot of shift which is happening. Now all this is something which is very natural, and that has been happening. But when we create a road, when we create an infrastructure, we basically put a hindrance to this process, which is very usual, which is very common. Now, what do we do about it? That's I think the most important question. Can we reconcile the connectivity, the connectivity that we need to develop with the ecological connectivity, as well as the functional connectivity that Dr. Chaudhary mentioned, which is very essential for keeping these ecosystems alive. Because if you do not have the ecological connectivity, then the genetic diversity sort of dwindles, and one disease could wipe out an entire population. So these aspects are very important, and the question is how can you reconcile the two and create a development paradigm where for instance, right now the development paradigm is guided by essentially, say, infrastructure connectivity, where you create a road to a place, and gradually we see that road is like a pivot to development that leads to more infrastructure coming up, that allows people to move freely, commute easily. But how do we consider all aspects of connectivity and not just human connectivity? So that is an important question. And over here, a lot of when I started researching on this, I could find that there are wildlife corridors which are essentially these corridors of connectivity between two protected areas. Now, one example that we always think of is, why don't we expand the area of protected areas? to me, for now, I feel that in India, the protected area is already 5.27% of India's total area, and given the immense population pressure that is there, expanding the area of protected regions would be a difficult proposition. And if you look at the other places, for instance, in Canada, the area of protected areas, the total landmass which is under protected areas is around 12.1%. So we do not really have the extra land, to allow the expansion of the protected areas. So what do? Animals still need to move, right? So then these wildlife corridors become very essential, as they provide this safe passage, a safe transition for animals to move between protected areas, move between stretches of forests. So wildlife corridors are very crucial, and the state of the art sort of idea presently is to create different underpasses or overpasses. So when you have a road which goes from south to north, and you have a wildlife corridor moving from east to west or west to east, then definitely these two are at loggerheads, and such a proposal would create disturbances. Now, when you create a culvert or you create an underpass, you allow the wildlife to move freely under the road, under the sort of railway line. But is that the only solution that we have? It has also been found that often when you create an underpass, you also allow more poaching to happen, because animals would definitely be using that underpass to cross, say, from one stretch to the other. And in other instances, it has been found that that underpass is mostly unused, as it might get waterlogged, so animals would not use the underpass. So these are all different ideas which are there, but there is still not a silver bullet which can help to reconcile these conflicting sort of ideas. Now, there is another way to look at it. Can we create infrastructure which doesn't cuts across natural spaces? Can we allow natural spaces to exist while human infrastructure sort of circumvents these natural spaces? Of course, that might be it might not be very cost effective, but in the long run, if the benefits were to be taken into account, will that really help to reconcile these two conflicting ideas? That is something which has to be deliberated, which has to be thought of. So these are some of my ideas, and yeah, I'd be happy to take up questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Modak. It has been very well put in, as you picked up a point, where you said, where maybe the expansion of PAs would be difficult, of the protected areas would be difficult, considering the growth in the human population. Very rightly pointed out, but can we not look into human livelihood, which is biodiversity dependent? If we can start looking into it, maybe we can expand our PAs, beyond where they are today, and connect it to people's livelihood, which was there before. Because previously, in the pre-colonial period, even during the colonial period, when we started having reserve forests, if you may know that most of the livelihood of the people were dependent on the biodiversity that was around them. Which brought in more respect and which kept the biodiversity intact even when it went into villages and other human settlements. So I think we could look into that, if you may please look into it. Second is, where you said, the infrastructure, where the infrastructure doesn't cut through natural spaces, which is a very wonderful input that you have given. And maybe if we get time, how do we look into it, where we can make it viable on the longer run? This kind of interest, how can we make it more viable in the longer run? Thank you for bringing in your points. I would request ISCS, because we started about almost 25 minutes late. So if you can allow the panel to at least carry on for another 25 minutes, that would be wonderful.
Sure,
And,
Rafta. You can carry on.
thank you,
No issue.
thank you very much, Arindamji. Thank you very much for this one, because we have a very interesting speaker, who is from my own region, from Darjeeling, Dr. Sonam, with his students on behalf of his college and his department from Darjeeling Government College, which is one of the oldest college, which also has a university extension within the college. So, Dr. Sonam Nawa, over to you before we get in for the other questions and more discussions, please.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I hope my screen is visible. I assume.
Yeah.
It's visible, sir.
Yes. Yes.
1 minute, sir. Yes, good evening, everyone. At the outset, I would like to wish everyone the World Environment Day. As on this auspicious day, we are sitting here and obviously on the digital platform, and we are discussing how to protect our, our habitats, fragmented habitats, or fragmented, yes, and how to make our earth greener. Now I would start with my topic. My topic I have chosen is the implications of connectivity lines on environment, key observations from outer and piedmont of Darjeeling, Sikkim, Himalaya. Now my presentation would be, most part of my presentation would be based on the secondary data or the literature review that I have gone through within this last 1 week over the internet, and a small portion of my presentation would be, you'll find some portions of it is based on my, my own research, my PhD thesis on the piedmont of Darjeeling, Sikkim, Himalaya. Now, at the very outset, I would sorry, my slides are not working. What happens?
Sonamji, if you can just scroll down and see instead of going on to the slideshow.
Oh, it's not working.
By just going down with the help of your cursor.
No, sir, it's not happening.
If you can redo it. While Dr. Sonam Lama brings in the Darjeeling Sikkim areas to you, some of the most beautiful areas, we know that this region has a lot of ecological pressures and fragmentations that has happened. Yes, I think Dr. Sonam Lama is back.
Yes, sir, it's working now.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I would start my presentation by giving some statistics on Indian transportation sector. As my, presenters or the distinguished presenters before me have already talked about, and Raj sir already has talked about how Indian transportation sector, grew from roads and railways and then, elite airways. Now India as of now stands as, second largest. India has got the second largest road network in the world after, United States. And within India, if we see, then the Maharashtra has got the largest or the longest road network. Our West Bengal stands somewhere in the middle, and all the northeastern states, Sikkim, Nagaland, Manipur, all stands in the right hand side, means they have very less amount of or less length of roads there. And within this large network of roads, if you see then the categorization, if you see the categorization, then rural roads make the highest percentage of this. And we were discussing my prior before me presenters were saying that rural roads, it's penetrating to the even the isolated rural areas of the India, and due to this we are getting more habitat fragmentation and the associated all the environmental problems with it. Now, not only the rail roadways, if we see the scenario of Indian Railways, then the Indian Railways uh, globally stands as the fourth longest rail network in the world, and it has a network of 70,000 kilometers. And if you see the airways, if you see the civil aviation, then it stands as the third one, uh, as on 2017. And not only this is a huge number, huge in the world, it's standing as the third one. But if we see the annual growth rate, then it is 16.3% between, it has grown by 16.3% between 2000 to 15,000. Now, what all implies this? Means all these implies that India stands as first, second, third, and fourth in second in road network, third in civil aviation network, and fourth in the rail network in the world. Now this brings us to the question then, how much the India is investing in maintaining or developing this huge infrastructure, means linear infrastructure, that is the network connectivity lines. Then India has historically, the answer is India is historically investing 1% of the GDP for its transportation infrastructure, which according to Kire is a consultant, world's leading consulting firm. Kire assumes that or believes that this is very less compared to the amount of GDP that other developing countries are investing. Like China has grown its GDP share from 4.6% in the year 2014 to 6.8% in the year 2017. And not only this, maybe due to this, since only 1% of our GDP is going into the maintenance of this transportation infrastructure, now currently India is planning to invest 1.8 trillion US dollars on overall infrastructure during the time period of 2019 to 2023 under the National Infrastructure Pipeline Project by Government of India. Now, what does this implies? What this implies on the topic we are discussing about? It implies that our country has already got a huge transportation network or the connectivity network. Its existing network stands as second, third, and fourth in the world, and in the coming years is still going to increase. Further increase or further improvement in this transportation is going to happen, and with it all the associated problems that we are discussing is going to increase. Now these transportation lines, scale and magnitude of these transportation lines or the connectivity lines starts from or range from hiking trails to transcontinental highways and railways in the world. This is not about the India, in the world. Now while going through the literature review for preparing for this topic, I came across many very interesting literatures available in the internet, and I found that even hiking trails or the trekking trails that we consider very carbon friendly or eco friendly are also detrimental to the environment, immediate environment. The direct trampling of grass and trampling of small insects in the grass can also trigger gully erosion in these higher altitudes, and due to this again environmental degradation can happen. It can lead to greater or larger environmental degradation. Now similarly, I came across so many other other literatures which are, environmental impacts of forest and construction on mountainous terrain, impact of construction on hill roads, on environment assessed through the multi-criteria approach. So many literature I came across. Now, so while going through so many literatures, I came across many terms like anthropopression, that is human, operation of the environment, and anthropogeomorphology. I'm basically from fluvial geomorphology background, and I find this anthropogeomorphology quite often in the literature. Now it's a buzzing word in the internet or in the literature domain or scientific literature domain. In fact, the topic we are discussing about is, part of human alteration, or what we say is, part of Anthropocene. Now, the geological, though it's unofficial but informal geological period that we are going through within the Holocene, unofficial time period is the Anthropocene, wherein the time period wherein we humans have made a significant, alteration of the natural world. Now, in my presentation, I'll just talk about only the four impacts that I consider are the most important, and I consider are the most significant, four. And among those four, the first one, other two dignified or distinguished presenters have already talked about a lot on this landscape or the habitat fragmentation, but it has to be talked upon because this term landscape or habitat fragmentation is the highest or the most, significant or detrimental impact that we people are, we humans are imposing on our earth or on our natural environment due to this linear infrastructure of connectivity lines. Now, what is habitat fragmentation or landscape fragmentation? It is the breaking of landscape into smaller and isolated pieces. And so large virgin area will be converted into small pockets, fragmented pockets. And this is due to, this may happen due to many things, the agriculture, fencing, and our transport lines is one of the most important among it. Now we can see few photographs wherein roadway, railway line is going through, and here is the agriculture happening, and a portion of the natural vegetation is there, and surrounding areas has been cleared. So it's a kind of, it's an example of habitat fragmentation or the landscape fragmentation. Now, due to this, what is happening? Due to this, this is happening. Whenever fragmentation happens, fragmentation means what? Fragmentation means there will be a disturbance in the supply of water, sediments, even dispersal of seeds, even dispersal of species within a large area. And animals, particularly animals, will find difficult to migrate from one area to another area. And when they migrate, they have to risk their lives like this. And here we can see few photographs from, few of the photographs are from North Bengal only, on the railway line which is connecting, NEFR line which is connecting Siliguri with the Alipurduar, has seen many accidents like this, wherein animals like mostly the elephants many of the elephants has died on the railway tracks. Here we can see one wild fox has died on the railway track. Now these are the photographs from other parts of the world. Now you can see here again herd of deers crossing the road, risking their life. Speeding vehicles is going there, and here one turtle is trying to cross the road, risking its life, for a slow moving animal. Crossing a 4-lane or 2-lane highway is really very difficult. It's very likely that it will be killed by the speeding vehicle there. Now this figure is very interesting here. This figure is showing state-wise, most common animals which were hit on the road or died on the road in American roads. So here we can see birds, cat, coyote, deer, squirrels, and other animals are there. Now this figure is very interesting. It signifies other thing. One more region for the animals coming to the connectivity lines or the transport lines. We have talked about the animals crossing the other side of the road or railway track in the search of food, water, in search of their mates, and just for going to seasonal migration, for their seasonal migration. But we also need to understand that most often animals also come to railway tracks and highways just because we humans irresponsibly throw our waste foods on the railway tracks or on the sides of the roads, which attracts the wild animals there, and they die there on the railway tracks or on the highways. Now again, there are few literatures. Railway, here is one more literature. Railway redistribute plant species in mountain landscape. This is here is the diagram or the figure where it shows that this railway line is dispersing different species of plants in this mountainous terrain of Jammu and Kashmir. Here is one more literature: habitat fragmentation by railways as a barrier to great migrations of Ugantus in Mongolia. So habitat fragmentation is the most significant or the most bad thing that we humans are doing with our transport lines. Now, habitat fragmentation is leading to one more crisis, that is the biodiversity crisis. Biodiversity crisis happens due to habitat loss, invasive species, overexploitation of resources, pollution, and it may be associated with climate change and global warming. But among this habitat loss, that is the habitat fragmentation is the most important. And here is one more finding by Haddad et al. 2015 in the journal Science Advances, which says fragmentation reduces biodiversity by up to 75%. So habitat fragmentation is the most significant impact that people are having on the earth. Now the second impact that I assume we are doing is the huge movement of earth materials in huge quantity, for laying our highways and roadways and our railway tracks, at least surface, surface transportation lines. We are moving our earth at a scale like never before. Here are two findings from Hook 1994, which is 3.8 billion tons of earth materials have been excavated and moved per annum for road and related infrastructure in US. One more finding says that road cutting in Georgia has increased the sediment yield of surrounding rivers by up to 20,000 to 50,000 tons per year. It's according to Woolman and Schick in 1967. Now, this obviously will be doing, we are defacing by moving so much of earth materials. We are at times defacing our landscapes. We are defacing the surface of the earth. We are deforming the surface of the earth through these things. Now, I would like to give one example from the very vicinity. Recently, Sikkim has been brought into the railway network map of India. Sikkim has been linked. There is a project going on which is linking the Sevok of West Bengal, Sevok station of West Bengal, to the Rangpur of Sikkim. So most of that railway track will be going through the tunnels under the mountains, but at some stretches it will be coming to the surface, and altogether there will be 12 tunnels on this railway project. And here is the photograph of the first tunnel. And what is happening is, while excavating these tunnels, huge earth materials are getting, getting excavated. And these developers are, what they are doing is, they are throwing This is the tunnel front. This is the picture of the that tunnel, and here is the tunnel front. This is the river Tista. These people are showing the sediments which were, or the materials which are being excavated from these tunnels on the bed of the river Tista. Now, due to this throwing or dumping of this earth materials on the bed of the river Tista, it is getting deformed. Huge, dumps of these sediment piles are getting piled on this bed of the river Tista, riverbed, and this is causing, again, it will obviously cause the environmental, degradation. Sorry. Now the next thing which I can think of due to this road construction, or the means our connectivity lines, is the next impact is the slope instability. It instigates slope instability of the natural slopes, and at times leads to landslides. Here are the pictures from North Bengal, and from North Bengal means from Darjeeling and Sikkim Himalaya, and we can see all the landslides that happened along the railway lines or the road lines, roadways. And this is not only the case in our area. Globally, if we see the data from Global Landslide Inventory of NASA Open Data Portal, then we see it shows that globally 40% of the landslides has happened within the half kilometer of any major road, 500 meter of any major road. That means roads and railways plays a significant role in, making our slopes unstable. Now here are 4 pictures from my own work, my own thesis, or my own work. And here this road is connecting Damdim of our Jalpaiguri district with the lava of now presently the Kalimpong district. Now during my field work, this road was undergoing widening. It was getting widened, and due to this widening, I could found twofold impact on this river. First impact was that wherever this widening was happening, the slopes were being cut, and the materials which were getting loosened from the slopes, they were taking these materials, these sediments, with their huge trucks, large trucks, and they were taking it and they were dumping these sediments directly to the river. Here you can see this dumping of sediments here directly on the river Chel. And this is the lava road, Damdim lava road. Here is the tipper which is coming or returning from after dumping the materials from here. And here we can see here is a bridge, bridge, and just downstream of the bridge they are throwing or dumping the sediments, which is constricting the natural width of the channel. And this is the first problem, or the first impact that I saw. And the second impact that I could figure out was that after widening, or after the after widening and after repairing, what was or during the repairing or during the widening of this road, many culverts, new culverts were coming, the existing culverts were being widened, and just for laying the road, they were using the same material from the not the same material, they were using the boulders, different sizes of shapes of cobbles or the sediments from the same river which were collected from near the Udlabadi. That means they are creating the pressure on this river by twofold. Okay. Now comes the last impact that I can figure out from our area. That is the that is relating to the relating to the laying of or the alignment of railway and the roadway in the transverse direction to the natural flow or the natural gradient of the region. Now this is the Landsat image of our region, Landsat region of the North Bengal. Here is the river Tista. Here around will be our Siliguri. Now Lish, Gase, you can see so many, the gradient, natural gradient of this whole region is North Bengal is from north to south. That is the reason why so many rivers are flowing north to south. But we humans, but all the developers who developed this railway and roadway, they have aligned the, or they have connected the Siliguri with the Alipurduar in the opposite direction to the general gradient of the region. Now this is creating now the two lines, that is railway line and one railway line and one roadway goes from west to east like this. Okay, from west to east like this. Now this is hampering, this is really hampering the dispersal of, or the natural distribution or dispersal of water, sediments, nutrients, everything or minerals from upslope to the downslope, from the higher reach. This is the outer Himalayan surface, and this is the Piedmont region of North Bengal plains. Now from here the sediments, all the everything, natural things has to go down naturally across this throughout this slope. But this railway line and roadway, National Highway 31 is somewhere obstructing that natural flow, and we can show this through here. Now this is the railway bridge, upstream here you can see, and downstream here is the road bridge. This is the twin bridges near the Odlabadi. This is the picture over the Google image of twin bridges at Odlabadi. This is Odlabadi town, and this is the railway line going or railway line or the roadway going across this natural flow of the river. And not only this alignment is wrong from west to east, rather one more thing is there. The developers of this roadway and the railway have kept the span across the river span at the minimum. Why minimum? To minimize the cost, cost of building the roadway and the railway or the bridges. Now due to this minimization of length span, what is happening? It is inducing a bottleneck effect. What we say is that bottleneck effect, bottleneck condition, inefficient. Due to this, what is happening? Inefficient transfer of water, sediments and nutrients to the downstream. Now what is happening? It is inducing two things. On the upstream also there is a problem, on the downstream also there are problems. In the upstream, due to restriction in the passage of this water and sediments, natural passage of flow of water and sediments, upstream is having huge sediment degradation. Huge amount of sediment is getting deposited in the upstream. Due to this, what is happening? Due to this, the river bed is continuously increasing. It is it's getting uplifted. It is due to this sediment degradation, and due to this sediment degradation, huge sediment degradation, what is happening? The difference between this riverbed and the embankment, this is the right embankment, this is the left embankment, is reducing, and it is threatening for a huge flood in the coming, or it happens in a couple of years, but somehow this process is continuously going on, and it keeps the threat of of flooding constant. Now in the downstream, just below the bridge, there is another process which is working due to restricted flow of concentrated flow of water and sediments. What is happening? It is creating a intense erosion below the bridges, and due to this, these piles of these pillars of these bridges are getting exposed due to continuous erosion down in there at the bottom of these pillars. Now due to this, again these infrastructures are getting threatened. In the past, there has been an instance of collapse of this rail bridge. This is the present remnants of the damaged rail bridge piers. This is the existing one, and the span still there. In the new bridge also, they have kept this span, same span, means the length of the bridge is same, but what they have done is they have reduced the numbers of piers, numbers of pillars from 5 to 2, so that there will be increased passage of flow of water and sediments. Now, as I said, this map is showing, this map is
Dr.
showing
Lama,
the.
I'm
Yes,
so
ma'am.
sorry to cut you short, but we are running out of time. If you can please now can compress
ma'am,
it
I
and
have-
come to the ending. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I have already reached the 19th slide. I have only 22 slides, ma'am. I will complete. Just give me 2 minutes, ma'am. 5 minutes. Now, this map is showing us the centerline migration of the river Chel from Patharjoda to Neora Kranti, that is the confluence of with the Neora. Now here we can see throughout this reach, only these two reaches are having or showing the highest level of migration. And this is just here is the twin bridges at Odlabadi, and this is the just upstream of that Odlabadi twin bridges, and this is the downstream. And due to this, up here in the zone 1, there is the this part of the land is hosted by this part hosts settlements, whereas here in the zone 2, we have Apalchand Reserve Forest, which is getting eroded constantly by this, westward movement of river shale. And in the future also, it is going to, we have predicted that it is going to migrate westward by this much, which will again put threat to the Apalchand Reserve Forest and the flora and fauna of this reserve forest. Now here are the field pictures of that erosion. Here is the erosion happening. See, we can see remains of trees lying on the riverbed. Now this brings to me the last part of the presentation, that is what is the solution, what we can do. Now while after going through so many things, so many literatures, I have come to one thing, that is one solution that I saw, which is acceptable to both the environmental activists and these infrastructure developers, means railway and roadway bridge developers, that is the wildlife crossing bridges. Now what is the wildlife crossing or bridges? They allow connection between the habitats that get divided by the man-made fragmentation. Means habitat fragmentation that we're talking about. See, the fragmentation had happened, but due to this bridge, now animals can cross from this part of the habitat to the other part of the forest. Now this will help them in migrate, help them go from one part to the other part for any of the regions we have talked so much about. Now these are the wildlife crossings or the bridges across the world. This is from Belgium, this is Canada, this is Singapore, here is the Colorado, USA, here is the Autobahn of Germany. We know Autobahn, there is no speed limit in Autobahn in Germany, this highway. Here also we have the a wildlife crossing or bridge. And here, this is very interesting, here we have wildlife bridge or the bridge for crabs. Red crabs are crossing from this side to the other side in Australia. This is the crab bridge. Now the good thing is India is also accepting these things, which is developing in other parts of the world. Now India is going to have first 5 animal bridges in the or on the Delhi-Mumbai highway. It's a greenfield expressway, first expressway which will be having 5 animal bridges coming in the future. And now in the conclusion, I would conclude by saying that connectivity lines account as the major reason for landscape fragmentation, and fragmentation reduces biodiversity by 75%. Transport infrastructures and corresponding earthwork are the major sources of sediment input. Now all these I have discussed. I'll come for the last 2 points, that is the global call for sustainable connectivity transport lines is increasing so that balance between ecology and economy can be achieved. Ultimately we have to get to the point where we can balance ecology with the economy. Ecology should always come to the forefront and the economy should be in the background, I would say. Now how can that be achieved? Now sustainable construction practices like bioengineering, minimal landscape fragmentation, consideration of natural gradient of the region, consideration of 100 years flood return data, insertion of wildlife bridges and ecoducts could be considered for minimal impact on the environment. And apart from this, wherever we can, we should avoid or divert the transport lines from the ecologically hotspot regions, like that happened due to the attempts of our respected sir Anwaruddin sir. He had made the attempts to divert or completely completely stop the railway track, proposed railway track that was during the 80s, that was proposed to transverse the Kaziranga National Park from east to west, like in our case. It was a good accomplishment of it's a huge accomplishment of Sir Anwaruddin sir, and I'm happy to share the panel with him, and our other planner Shreyanshu Modak is there. And I would like to thank ISCS and ICCR for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lama. It was extremely enlightening. You must see the comments that have come in the box while you are speaking, which are very interesting. Many new things learned. Like while creating infrastructure, the kind of damage that we do on the earth, and then we change the landscape by dumping the same earth somewhere else, has does make a lot of difference. And also the designs in the bridges, because as you put up very rightly, across North Bengal along the foothills, if you see, most of the bridges have got a very short life. They do not have a long life because their pillars, they get damaged, and then you need to replace it. So while reducing the cost of building it, we are actually looking into accidents that may happen to human life because of the damage in bridge, and also constraint in continuous movement from one place to the other for the human being. So I think better planning needs to be taken up. But before we finish off today's topic, we have seen, for ISCS, we have certain takeaways. The takeaways is, how do we balance between the ecological infrastructure of connectivity with the functional infrastructure of connectivity, and the built infrastructural connectivity, or the human built infrastructure? Because if we cannot find this balance, that means we are missing on time completely. Because if we are following the competition, the race of being the second best road network, and the third best air network, and the fourth best railway network, I think we are missing on a major part of which India is proud of, that is the ecological content that we have. Because we need to look into the ecological content. We need to find out a balance for this ecological connectivity, that it continues, because this is something what happens naturally. As most of our speakers have put together, this is something what happens naturally, which has happened naturally. Only that through linear development we are trying to break this, or we are trying to damage this entire ecology through fragmentation. So the question still remains for all the three panelists who are here, all the very renowned panelists of different age groups and of different field experiences, which is wonderful, because it is only ISCS who can put together such kind of panelists of different generations coming together and about the development pattern for the country as we should look ahead. One is, are we very right on our environmental assessment when some development project is taking place? This is something what we must ponder upon, and this is what we must talk about, because until and unless we do not have a meaningful, serious and immersed environmental assessment of every linear project that is going to happen, I think we are missing somewhere when we talk about development of our country. Second is, the biodiversity laws that we are talking about. Are we really concerned about our biodiversity losses? Because in our country we have the biodiversity board. We know that every corner has to be covered under this biodiversity board. We are really trying to put together across the country the biodiversity assets that we have. We are trying to survey and put them into a list of biodiversity assets. I think the work has to speed up with better researches, as Dr. Chaudhary has told us. I think this is the need of the time, that we need to come over here. How do we stop habitat fragmentation? It is very easy to talk about human linear development, infrastructure-based connectivity, which is anthropocentric, which is quite easy to talk about, because we humans are talking about only human development. Are we really concerned on this World Environment Day? The question is, are we really concerned about ourselves? Because if our ecology is gone, as a part of the ecology, human race is also gone. And let us not forget that it is not the earth that needs the human beings, but it is human beings who need this earth to live in, actually. So it is here that we first have to put this question whenever we are talking about development, because this is something as Indians where we have the conscious of spirituality attached to development. There, I think we should think about the spirituality of nature, which is the basic spirituality of every natural thing that we have on this world. So this is what we have to think about, and also I think it is time when ISCS should also talk about about the developmental patterns that should take place, where there should be a committee that should be put together that should be able to suggest. It just shouldn't end up with one just webinar that we are having here today, but I think it is a very competent organization to bring in these kind of conscious people under one roof, starting from academicians to practitioners to activists under one roof. So it is time when organizations like ISCS should think about how to bring in a committee which can which can talk about, which can advise the states and the country on what should be the development pattern that we should look about. A team that should spread awareness amongst the younger generations about what development is about, whether it is anthropocentric or whether it should have an ecological balance, because this team should be put around to get more impact. Thank you very much, listeners and viewers who are over here, because it is a rare opportunity that you get this kind of panelists to come together. We are so very grateful to ISCS, their director, their founder, Mr. Arindam Mukherjee, and Ms. Kankana, who has put all efforts to bring this together. Over to Mr. Arindam Mukherjee, please.
Thank you, Razda. Good evening, all. On behalf of Institute of Social and Cultural Studies and Indian Council for Cultural Relations, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers of 8th Coeval Discourse on Impact of Connectivity on Environment and Ecology for gracing your important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. A big thank you to Razda, our very known Razda, Sri Raj Basu, Convener Association for Conservation and Tourist Act, for his efforts towards as a moderator of today's webinar. Also would like to extend a special thanks to Dr. Anwaruddin Chaudhuri, our old friend, former Divisional Commissioner of Assam, and Sri Snehangshu Modak, Junior Fellow ORF Kolkata, Dr. Sonam Lama, Assistant Professor of Geography Department, Darjeeling Government College, for making excellent presentations and important suggestions and making this webinar interesting and meaningful. Thanks to all the participants for today's webinar. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And last but not least, thanks to all the people who helped us either directly or indirectly to make the webinar successful. Goodbye. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for the participants. Especially, we had so many school participants today. I know this is very, very valuable for you. So this webinar will also be uploaded on our YouTube channel, ISCS India. So please do like and subscribe to our channel.
I would request Dr. Sonam to actually share your presentation with the team at ISCS. That would be wonderful, because if the original presentations of Dr. Chaudhuri and Dr. Sonam goes online with the presentation, it would look wonderful because it has a lot of references. Thank you.
Sure,
yes,
sir, sure.
Yeah, we'll do that.
That's
we'll
privilege,
that.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you
sir.
so much. Stay well, stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Anwaruddin, sir. Thank you, Sudhanshu Bhai. Snehangshu Bhai.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.